Hey there, everyone. Welcome to what is, I guess, inevitably part one of many for this Q&A. So I got a lot of questions, and I'm going to go through them, I guess, in the order they came, because that's how I wrote them in this file I'm looking at. So, uh, yeah, this is going to be many parts. I think there's a lot of these are really good questions, and a lot of them are going to be long. The answers are going to be long. Some of them are going to be really short, but some are going to be really long, and it's going to be multiple parts, and I'm not going to even be able to do it all today. So what we're going to do is, because we have this Q&A, and I put up the video a week ago, and people ask questions, but if you're watching this video now and you have questions, just leave them in the comments, and because I haven't recorded the other parts yet, I'll just tack them on to the end, so could it possibly be the never-ending Q&A video if I keep getting questions. But just tack your added on questions below if you have any, and if not, or comments on my answers, whatever, doesn't matter, leave it below. Let's get into this. So, first question from Accent on Gamers. Accent on Gamers is a new YouTube channel I'm a sub to. They're pretty good channel. It's two guys, Senkai and Mario. You should check them out. But anyway, Senkai of those two asked me, what are your thoughts on Tales of Rebirth? And he mentions that I mentioned it in my Tales of Hearts uh, impressions video. And Tales of Rebirth is actually my favorite Tales game. I like it because I like the characters more than any in that game more than any other game in the Tales series, and I like the battle system. The battle system is a 2D battle system, but it's different from the standard like one plane battle system like in like Tales of Fantasia or something. It's got three planes, so you can kind of move back and forth. Imagine like Guardian Heroes, but with a more Tales of battle system. So I really like that battle system for Tales of Rebirth, and I like the world. I like the characters. I just like a lot about that game. The story is a little bit more interesting, I think, than the other kind of Tales characters, and the theme is a bit more interesting. The whole thing is like, in my opinion, it's the best Tales game. It's if you haven't seen it, I mean, it is in Japanese only. I'm not sure if there's a translation for it. On my other channel, on my never used anymore gameplay channel, where I was doing the live translations of games, there's about 2 hours of the initial 2 hours of the game that I translated like live in the video. So if you're interested in Tales of Rebirth, you can go to my other channel, which is in my side. It's linked in the sidebar. Where I do my recommended channel bar, I guess. It's linked in there, and you can check out the first like 2 hours of that game with me translating it in like on the fly. So if you're interested in to see like what kind of battle system, what kind of story it starts out as, you can check it there. I didn't continue that one because I got copyright claims from Namco Bandai, so I had to stop. But yeah, that's really none of the other Tales games that I've played have lived up to Tales of Rebirth. So Tales of Rebirth, probably the best game I think in the series. But alright, thanks for the questions, Henkai of Accent on Gamers. And next we have my pal, Sega CD Universe Vampire Mike. He asked a ton of questions, which is nice. Let's see. But first question he asked, what is your favorite Japanese exclusive game? That's hard. There's a lot of these questions like, what are your favorite games in these? And I have a real hard time with that because I have a hard time picking favorite games comparatively, like picking a game between like like an action game and like a turn-based RPG or a dungeon crawler or something. They're so different. They're like disparate types of things that like comparing them doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Like I can't like say this is my favorite game over all of these other games because they all do something good in their own genre. So I'm much better at picking games that are like in a genre, like my favorite of the genre or that's of this type. So I don't know, favorite Japanese exclusive game. That's hard. Um, I wanna say it's gonna be something like uh, Yakuza 5 maybe, and that's just it's because it's recent. I'm thinking of that. But there are a ton of games that are Japanese exclusive that are just amazing. But Yakuza 5 is one that I had a real good time with. Like I really enjoyed it. It was like the kind of game that I was sad that it had to end. So I'll go with that one. And then Mike asks, what game was the coolest to find out in the wild? It's hard. It's another hard one because I'm not much of a, like a game hunter or whatever. I don't like go out and search for games for the most part. Generally, I have games I want to play, and I just buy them at retail. Most of the time I just buy them at retail. You find them in the store, or I don't find them at all. So it's kind of hit or miss with that. It's either the places I usually go have it in stock, or I wait for them to get it into stock. That's how I roll. I don't know. I don't have any real. I don't really go out to stores all that much. I have gone out to a few places, so I did find a copy of Super Ghouls and Ghosts for this Super Famicom, and a complete in box Kid Dracula at this local kind of used, like a recycle shop. So that's probably the best, because I don't usually buy stuff that way. I usually just either order online or buy directly from a store. Let's see. Okay, what he asked next, what Japanese FMV games would you recommend? This is a good question, because I was going to do a video on Japanese FMV games in the future, but I have this big list of videos that I want to make that I'm probably never going to get to because I'm just busy, or I'm too lazy to take the footage for them or whatever. But I want to, maybe I can, never mind, I'm not going to get up and look for it. But there are a couple games, but the one I would recommend the most is Tokyo Shadow. And Tokyo Shadow is on the PlayStation and on the Sega Saturn. And I have the Sega Saturn version. And Tokyo Shadow is essentially an FMV Shin Megami Tensei game. And I say that because imagine like an FMV game. So everything is full motion video and has live actors. But this game is like an FMV game set in the Shin Megami Tensei world. So it's not made by Atlus, but it's written by the guy who wrote the scenario for Shin Megami Tensei 1 and 2, and it makes all these references to things that are in Shin Megami Tensei, including like the kind of the teleportation devices that they use in Shin Megami Tensei, and then there's like blatant things, like there's like Megiddo is one of those things that shows up, and there's a bunch of like angels and demons and things that show up that are the same. It's like in everything but name an FMV Shin Megami Tensei game, and it's totally awesome. It's like a nice glimpse into mid 90s Japan, and I had a lot of fun playing it because it's got this kind of weird, goofy acting going on. Even though like some of the actors in it are actually pretty famous, so it's not that it's poorly acted. It's just like the story and the setting is all mid 90s Japan. So it's like I don't know. It's just interesting to me, and I really liked the kind of deep occult thing going on with it. And I played it with a friend also, and she was really into the story, and she really liked playing it. So she doesn't really normally play games either. So it was the kind of thing that it was fun for everybody. So I would go with that one. There's a bunch of horror ones. I think there's a couple on the 3DO, and there's like Gakko de yatta kowai hanashi toka, like stuff like that is on the Sega Saturn. But I have those over there. I'm just not going to get up and grab them because I'm lazy. So, but if you want to search for some stuff like that, there are a few good Japanese-only FMV games. If you like FMV games, I guess. Okay, and then Mike asks, what product do you put in your hair? Now this is a good question. I mean, for anybody but Mike who has no hair. But I will answer. So let's see. I have two things I usually put in my hair. I actually have three, but one is a variant of this. There is this one. It's hair wax. Styling spiky edge moving rubber, it's called. And then we have this Cool Grease Z. This is I also have this other Cool Grease that I use that's a bit softer than this one, but it depends on like how long my hair is. So right now I'm using this one because it's harder. But when my hair gets longer, I use the soft one because it makes it shinier, I guess. I don't know. Whatever. It's not like it takes any time at all to do my hair. I literally just rub this stuff on my hand and go whoosh, and then this front part I just go whoosh, and I'm done. It's like a minute-long process. It's just but that's what I use. Hair wax and hair grease together. And let's see. Name something that struck you as odd when you moved to Japan. It's hard because when I moved to Japan, I had already lived in Japan for a year as an exchange student, and I had come to Japan even before then as just for, I guess, random travel. So there wasn't really much that I was like super surprised about. There's things that surprise you in ways that are like, you know that they're there, but then when it happens, you're like, oh man, I forgot about that. And that was like the kind of things where I was like getting my apartment, and it's like I have to pay like 6 months of rent up front for the first month, like that kind of thing. It's not like a super crazy thing. It's just, it's so much money, and it makes like moving it all cost prohibitive. But yeah, stuff like that. Pretty much everything else I was really used to by the time I actually moved here. So I don't know. Sorry, it's not really an interesting answer. And last one from Mike is, tell me your top 3 favorite films. That's that's hard too, but let's see. Let's go with, okay, They Live with Rowdy Piper. I love that movie. I love that movie since it came out. And we even read a book. I read the original story. It's like 10 pages actually. It's really short, but I read a book about They Live. So this is like like a kind of movie critique of They Live, like a real like kind of approach to it as a piece of cinema. So it's really nice. That I really like that movie. It's got a lot of stuff going on in it. Here's a book about it. That's how much I liked it. I read a separate book about the movie. And then I'll probably go with Clive Barker's Nightbreed. Nightbreed is one of those movies that, it's in its current form, it's not especially spectacular. The story is interesting, and it's probably boosted more by the fact that I know what's going on because I read the book. But the story is interesting, and the characters are all really cool, and the kind of world that is built in that movie is really awesome. Like the place where the monsters live is really neat, and the kind of mythologies that they all have built around them, and the kind of contrast between the humans and the monsters, and the way things turn out. And I'm really excited for that movie recently because they kind of re-added in like an hour of that movie, and they're gonna soon release that on DVD, I hope. So I'll be getting that when that comes out, like whenever it comes out right away. So that's one of my favorite movies that most people don't really enjoy, I think, but something I really like. They Live, Nightbreed, and the third one is really hard because I guess I can just look over at my movies. But it's hard, man. It's hard to pick a favorite because, I have a lot of movies that I really like, and then like all my favorite ones are kind of stupid movies that nobody else likes. But I know what, I'm probably I'll just go with the original RoboCop because I have a lot of RoboCop stuff, but nothing really matches the original RoboCop with like the Paul Verhoeven RoboCop. It's such a good movie, and it's the kind of thing like I saw it first when I was a kid, and I enjoyed it as kind of a goofy action movie. But when, and that's like when it came out, like 1988 or 89 or something, so I was like 10. But, so I enjoyed it as an action movie, but later on watching it again, you realize that there is kind of like a lot of kind of satire and the kind of black humor going on throughout the whole thing. So, and it's a real kind of critique on society, which is interesting. It's an interesting critique that kind of like, a lot of it was like predictive in a way that was interesting. So, That movie is really good. Actually, almost all of Paul Verhoeven's kind of actiony science fiction type movies. So like Starship Troopers, also a really good movie. The sequels are awful though. Don't watch those. The first one was really good though, in the same way that RoboCop is good. It actually does a lot of things that are like parallel to what RoboCop does as a movie. But yeah, those are really both really good movies. And I'm looking at this, and that's the end of Mike's question. So thanks, Mike. Also check out Sega City Universe. He's a good guy and good channel. So, but looking at this, I'm 15 minutes in, and I've covered two people's questions, and there's 5 pages of these things. So who knows how long this is going to take? But next, we have Satsuna Knight asks 4 questions. What is your favorite beat 'em up? That's not a hard one to choose, actually. For me, my favorite beat 'em up is straight up Final Fight. I, I love Final Fight since it first came out. I played in the arcades so much. I bought it like every version of that game. I have pretty much. I bought the game like 6 or 7 times. Every time it comes out somewhere, I buy it. And it's the kind of thing that like. I've played it so much that I can just run right through it. It's not like it's a challenge at all anymore. So, why I keep playing it, I don't know, but it's probably like one of my most played games too, only because it's something that I just really enjoy. There are a lot of, obviously there's a lot of beat 'em ups that are better than Final Fight, because that's kind of like your almost fighting game, beat 'em up prototype. Like that's the thing that like most of the better fighting games kind of cribbed off of Final Fight. So, there it's like the innovator, and then like everything else after that came. Obviously there's a lot of better games, but as far as like just like the amount of time I played and the kind of feelings I have for the game, Final Fight is my favorite beat 'em up. Let's see. Next, are you interested in Final Fantasy 15? Final Fantasy 15 is something I am interested in. It's weird because I wasn't interested at all in Final Fantasy 13, and that's not like it got bad reviews or people like complained about it and I would just like lost interest. It was like I really disliked Final Fantasy 12, like strongly disliked Final Fantasy 12 enough that, and I didn't like 10 either. So it's not like Final Fantasy 12 was just like the one bad game for me. Like I played 10 and I was like, didn't really like it. And then I played 12 and I was like, I'm so done with Final Fantasy. I'm never playing Final Fantasy again. Screw Final Fantasy. And Final Fantasy 13 came out and I just had no interest. So I know a lot of people like it and I know a lot of people hate it, but I've never played it and I don't plan on playing it. And that's Final Fantasy 13. But Final Fantasy 15 is that kind of thing that it looks different enough from Final Fantasy proper to have kind of sparked a little bit of interest in me. And I'm actually interested in Final Fantasy 15. I will buy it when it comes out. And hopefully it will renew my like for Final Fantasy, which is, I've played every Final Fantasy game except for 13. So 15 will hopefully, well, I haven't played 14 or 11 either, but all the console titles at least that are not MMOs. So I will play Final Fantasy 15 when it comes out, and I'm, marginally excited for it. I'm not like super excited, but, I'll be playing it. And then next, what is your favorite Pokemon? I don't have a favorite Pokemon. I've only played one Pokemon game ever, Pokemon Red on the original Game Boy. And okay, because I've only played Pokemon Red, and I'm gonna say my favorite Pokemon is Execute, because it's the most ridiculous I can think of from that game. And I did use Execute in my party because it was so ridiculous. So, but that game was, I said this before, but I played Pokemon, and it's not that I disliked it. I just thought like this would be awesome if I were a kid, but if I were 10 years old, it would have been great. But I was 20 when it came out, so it's the kind of thing where, it was just kind of like too easy and too much for kids, like kid focused for me to like really have gotten into it. But But, I played through it and it was fun, but not like so fun that I understand why people love it so much. And I don't, I didn't like obsess over it. I just like blew right through it and I was just like, oh, that was okay. And then I never touched it again. So it's pretty much it for me and Pokemon. Let's see, last one. Is there any game you played 250 plus hours? I'm sure there are plenty. Plenty of games that I played 250 plus hours, but I'd have to. The thing is that it's only recent that you get a real count on your games, like how much time you've played. It's not like you can go back to your Sega Genesis or your Super Nintendo or your TurboGrafx or whatever and check the time you've played the game for most games or almost any games. But I can only think of recent ones because that's the only ones that are really have a time that like an actual time written on there. But I played more than 300 hours of Fallout 3. Probably the same for Fallout New Vegas. Definitely more than that for probably. I don't even know how much for Dark Souls. Definitely more than 250 though. It's hard. Just looking back over here, more than 250 is hard. But I mean, I probably played more than that in World of Warcraft when it first came out. And like I only played World of Warcraft for 3 months or so because it came out like almost right before I moved to Japan. And I had a bunch of free time before moving. So what I did was I bought World of Warcraft and I was just like sitting at home most of the time playing World of Warcraft for a couple of months before I came to Japan because I had nothing better to do. And that was it. After I moved to Japan, I never touched it again. And I, haven't played an MMO since then. So yeah, I don't know. That's about it that I can think of. But I know I probably definitely put more time than 250 hours into Wizardry 5, I'd say, on the Super Nintendo. I played it almost every day for a whole summer. So I can... that one is probably up there. But Fallout 1 and 2 also, I probably played that much. StarCraft, I probably played that much, and Warcraft 1, 2, and 3. I used to play a lot of games on PC. If you can't haven't noticed that, but this was like in the 90s, in the mid 90s. Civilization, probably I've spent way more time than 250 hours playing. So maybe Romance of the Three Kingdoms also. I put a lot of time into that with friends. So I don't know. That's about it. Let's see. So thanks for the questions. It's in a night. Next person, City Moon XX. Your top 3 all-time favorite games. Again, it's hard, but I don't know. I would say that probably Fallout 2 is really high up there. Fallout 2 and I don't know. It's hard. Wizardry 8, I'd say, is probably pretty high up there. That's a game you can play almost indefinitely. Like you could just keep playing that forever because there's so much customization with your parties, and you can make ridiculous kind of like challenge parties and ways to go through the game. It's like infinitely replayable. A lot of those types of dungeon crawlers are, but Wizardry 8 is such a good game that you can get that on Good Old Games right now, so you should do that if you haven't played it. It still looks relatively good considering it's how old it is, but that's a really good one. I don't know, man. That's rough. I'll just go with Dark Souls because I've just put so much time into it, and I'm just really excited for Dark Souls 2 at the moment, so I'll just go with that as like a kind of add-on special third game, even though who knows what I would really have to give it a lot of thought, and again, like, it's hard. I've played so many games that it's hard to pick favorites. It's just hard. I'm sure everybody knows that kind of feeling, but let's see, your favorite JRPG of all time. Whew. It's kind of a genre that I could pick a favorite in, but favorite of all time, wow. I'm trying to think of like what game would I enjoyed as a JRPG that I enjoyed the most. I have to really think about it because all the ones that come to mind are not JRPGs. I'm gonna look over my games here, and JRPG, huh? You know, that's rough. I don't want to say something like I remember really liking, for example, like when it came out, I really liked Final Fantasy VII. Like it was amazing when it came out, but I wouldn't say that's my favorite JRPG of all time. It wasn't like even at the time, like I liked it a lot, and like when the summons would come out, you know, that was like off the charts awesome at the time. It was so great, even though you had to watch them every time you did it, which was not so great after a while, especially when you had like the repeat, the mimic ability, and Knights of the Round. So yeah, that kind of thing. But that's rough. Favorite JRPG? Ha ha. It's weird that now that I think about it, like most of my favorite RPGs tend to be Western RPGs. Like when I think about when I was a kid, like my favorite types were the gold box games on the Amiga and Ultima and Wizardry. And then, you know, I got older, and then there's stuff like Shadowrun. And of course, Final Fantasy I played on the Nintendo, but man, favorite JRPG. I guess I'll go with Shin Megami Tensei. And that one is good because the world is so good. The story is great, and the world is so amazing that, you know, and the game system itself is really good. So, I mean, out of all the Japanese RPG series I can think of, like Shin Megami Tensei is probably the best. And so I'll just go with the first game, which is I have a hard time picking what is my favorite in the series of those, but I think someone asked that later, so I'll come back to it. But let's go with that. Favorite Sega game of all time is the next question. Favorite Sega game? Wow. Favorite Sega game. See, I think unlike most Sega fans, I'm not really a fan of Sonic. So, like, I haven't even really played that many Sonic games. You know, I played the first Sonic, and Sonic Adventure on the Dreamcast. But beyond that, I, like, really haven't played that many Sonic games. And I'm not, like, a huge platformer fan, so even when I was young, I didn't really play a lot of platformers if I could avoid it. So it's the kind of thing, like, when I think about Sega now, I just think, like, fuck, Yakuza. That's what I would say, Yakuza. And maybe I'll go with Yakuza 5 again. That game was so good. And it's such a good game. I'll just go with that because, man, that's Sega's best franchise. I don't care. Out of everything they have, Yakuza is the best series. So, I can't think of anything they make that's better than that. I can think of a lot of good stuff they make, but nothing that's I look forward to and, like, really enjoy playing more than the Yakuza games. So I'll go with that. So, alright. Thank you, CityMoonXX, for some questions. And next person, we have Fig Protoss. And he asks, how has your life changed / developed in recent years? I think in recent years, not that. I mean, it depends on how far much you count as recent. Like, you know, I've been living in this same apartment for 6 years now, and I've had the same job for 6 years, pretty much. I mean, besides, like, recently I started doing a second job as a games translation, but beyond that, not a whole lot has changed in recent years. I mean, 10 years, maybe 9 years ago I moved to Japan. That's pretty big, but after that everything was pretty much, you know, I don't want to say routine because I don't think I live like a really routine life, but I don't know. There hasn't been any like recent changes or developments. Like I'm still, you know, an unmarried guy living in an apartment doing the same translation type of job that I've been doing since, you know, 6 or 7 years ago. So I don't know. I got more games. That's all I can think of. I can't really think of any like real changes, like big developments. That's about it. So sorry, it wasn't that an interesting of an answer. But thanks for the question. Next, we've got RoboJam 64. Okay, what is your favorite Game Boy, Game Boy Color, and Game Boy Advance RPG? Okay, I have to think about it, but for the Game Boy, the original Game Boy, it's probably a toss up between Ultima. I think it's the Four Virtues or something. I don't. I think that's the name of it on the Game Boy. Something with it's Ultima something something virtues on the Game Boy is, and just that the first Final Fantasy on the Game Boy, which is really Saga, but I played I played that game so much, and but the Ultima game is really really good. So that's rough. I'll just go with Final Fantasy on that one because it's actually a really good Game Boy game. Like I would really recommend. Really recommend both of those if you can play them on the Game Boy. There are a bunch of other ones that I like, but there's a bunch of Game Boy games that I would recommend for better RPGs. But those two are probably ones that you probably should play. Game Boy Color. I haven't played a ton of stuff that's on the Game Boy Color only because I never owned a Game Boy Color. I bought the original Game Boy like a month after it came out, and then the next Game Boy product I bought was the Game Boy Advance. So I have some Game Boy Color stuff, but most of it is either like recent years purchase or the kind of thing where like it's not an RPG. I have like Crystallis on the Game Boy Color, but that's a pretty good RPG on the Game Boy Color, but it's not as good as the Nintendo version. So the NES version is just better. So I wouldn't really want to recommend the Game Boy Color version. I guess I'll go with what's it called? Devil Children. White Book is the one I would go with. There are 3 games on the Game Boy. Yeah. There's 3 games on the Game Boy Color, but Black and Red are also on the regular Game Boy, but White is on the Game Boy Color only, and it's a kind of different connected story to those games. And, that game is interesting in a way that, like, it is kind of kid-focused, and all the demons look like Pokemon, but yeah, I don't know. I think that series is a bit better in terms of, like, how things work than Pokemon is. It's a little bit more challenging. I mean, not that it's challenging, but it's more so than I think Pokemon is. But again, it is kind of kid focused, so I haven't really gotten super into those. But it is a good game overall. And the Game Boy Advance. Game Boy Advance. I'm gonna actually grab my Game Boy pack here and see what is good on the Game Boy Advance. Oh, well, yeah, I would say this. This is probably this one right here. This is Final Fantasy Tactics Advance. And Final Fantasy Tactics Advance is obviously, it's not like your standard Final Fantasy Tactics game. It's not a port. It's a new game entirely, but it is a kind of like, it's like the never-ending story almost, in that it starts out like, and he's like the kid reading a book in the library, and then suddenly he's in a different world in the book. It's pretty interesting actually. I really liked the game mechanics for Final Fantasy Tactics Advance, and it's that's kind of a cliche answer. I think a lot of people would say that, but it's a good game. I understand why people would say that. It's a good game, so I'll go with that. Alright, so RoboJam64, thanks for the question. And, okay, the next... This video is like over a half hour, and I haven't even finished a full page of questions yet. There's 5 pages. So what I'll do is I'll just finish this page, and there are a lot of questions already, but I'll finish the page, and then I'll stop the video, and we'll move on to the next part. And then if you have more questions, leave them below, and whatever. We'll just continue. So, next person. Crack Lotus. Crack Lotus. Crack Lotus. Crack Lotus is a good channel. You should definitely subscribe to him. I really like his channel. He makes a lot of videos. I like the things he talks about. I like what he says. He seems like a good guy. I guess he's around the same age as I am too. I think he mentioned that he's in his 30s. Like, I'm in my mid 30s. Like, I'm 36 years old this year. So, you know, he's around my age, I think. But you know, his face is always covered, so who knows? He could be really young and just pretending. I don't think that's true though. But anyway, he has a bunch of questions, and so let's see. So what are some of your favorite Japanese musicians? I don't listen to a lot of Japanese music per se, but I have a couple of Japanese bands that I like. There's this band that's awesome, really good, called Envy. And there is a straight edge band from New York called Envy. It's not them. It's a Japanese band called Envy, and they're kind of a, I don't know, like a noise rock band. But they're really, really good. I would definitely recommend them if you can search their stuff. Yeah, I don't know what to recommend for them. There are some splits they did with, like, I think they just split 10-inch with some other bands in the US, but I like a bunch of Japanese noise and kind of punkish bands. So if you ever listen to like Melt Banana, they're pretty good, and like the Boredoms, and I kind of like Balzac only because they're like a Japanese misfits. It's really weird. If you've ever listened to Zeni Geba, or I guess like Zeni Jiva, people call them Zeni Geba. Is what they're called in Japanese, but they have a split, like it's like a half side 10-inch. It's like a one side 10-inch with Steve Albini on vocals, and that's really, really good. I don't know where you can get that though. So yeah, that's my Japanese bands that I listen to for the most part. What is your favorite From Software game? From Crack Lotus. It's hard. I like a lot of From Software games. I think they make a lot of games that are like right up, like focused towards me. They make a lot that aren't. Like, I don't like anything with mechs. I'm not like a huge mech fan. I don't really buy games with mechs, so like Armored Core, not for me. I'm not going to be buying Armored Core games. So sorry, From Software. No Armored Core from me, but if they make a fantasy style game, I'll probably buy it. And I mean, I bought other games from them too. They have like some strategy games, and they have like a a Monster Hunter themed, like Animal Crossing type game with the cats from Monster Hunter. That was actually pretty fun. I actually enjoyed playing that. It's not like a standard From Software game, but you know, I gotta go with Dark Souls or Demon Souls. Those are really From Software's, like, you know, that's like their magnum opus. I hope Dark Souls 2 is even remotely as good as those. But it's probably, everybody's been saying it's going to be better, so I'm really excited for those. But that's not really I mean, that's, if you ask anybody, that's probably what their answer is. I mean, I like a lot of From Software games though, so I mean, I have all the Kingsfield games. I've got all the Shadow Tower games. I played all those. Those are all good. But really, Dark Souls is like the culmination of all of those. So I'll go with that. Let's see. So, Crack Lotus, question number 3. What age did you decide to leave the States for Japan? And do you ever consider returning? Let's see. I think I moved to Japan when I was 26. So, yeah, that's when I moved here when I was 26. And yeah, I was actually had a pretty good job in the U.S. Like I was a systems engineer, and I was making a bunch of money, and I kind of dropped everything in my life, um, and moved to Japan because you can only do that kind of thing when you're younger. Like if I lived in the U.S. now and I was working a job, like I wouldn't be able to move to Japan. Like that's the kind of thing like you can't really do. So I just said, screw it. I'm gonna quit my job and move to another country because that's what I want to do. So I did it. And do I ever consider returning? Um, Not really. I haven't really thought much about it. And when I do think about it, I think what a pain in the ass it would be. Um, I haven't even been back to the U.S. in like 8 years. I haven't flown back to visit. I haven't done any of that because I hate flying back. It's such a long flight. It's painful. It's like being in an airplane for 2 full days, and you get 3 square meals of airplane food. It's it's awful. It's a terrible flight. I just hate flying back, and like flying back and then getting all my stuff there would be a nightmare. And plus, like, where would I go? Like, the only place I can think of that I even want to live in the U.S., like, that I know I've been to and I like is New York. And, like, what am I going to do? Am I going to be a translator from Japanese in New York? I guess maybe I could, but man, screw that. I'm just staying in Japan. Um, let's see. Let's see. Next question. Most interesting video game protagonist. Most interesting. Hmm. It's weird because I think I'll play a lot of games where you're the character, like the main protagonist, is just this kind of no-name, no history guy. Like you're making him from scratch, and he doesn't really have much going on. But I want to think about that because most interesting. Hmm. Hmm. You know, if you've ever played Drakengard, that game has a ridiculously interesting protagonist. It's not, and he's awful. I mean, every character in the game is awful, but like that, the character it's interesting because like he has like a really kind of strong motivations for what he's doing, and they're not necessarily good, and you get to kind of see and play as this just terrible person with terrible people around you, and it's kind of an experience that you don't normally get. So I'll pick that. It's like I said, it's not an incredibly great game. I mean, mechanically, it's not like spectacular in any way, but characters and story for that are so messed up that it's just pretty interesting. Let's see. So he asked a few of my favorite movies. So I mentioned a few earlier, but I can mention a few more just for the hell of it. There's a movie. If you've ever seen, okay, I'm trying to think. There's an English name for this. Okay, the movie is Cairo in Japanese, but I think it's Pulse in English. And if you've ever seen the movie Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, that movie is okay. It's like came out before Old Boy, so it's kind of in that Old Boy trilogy, I guess. But it's the first part of it, and there's a third part that's like Sympathy for Ms. Vengeance. But the first one, Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance, is such a freaking amazing movie. When the first time I watched it, I thought it's so messed up, and it's so like it starts out at like all the characters are at this horrible low point in their life, and you think like, well, okay, well, like this movie is gonna go and they'll kind of get better, but it doesn't even work close to that. They're like this ridiculous low point in their life, and like the whole movie is just them getting worse. Just everything goes down and down. You think like nothing could be worse for these people, and then suddenly like the whole movie is about every one of these characters lives getting worse. And it's like horribly depressing, and you watch it and you think, what is going on? This movie is so like hard to watch, but it's so good. And I watched it, and like it was the kind of thing where when it was over, like I immediately watched it again because it was so like just did something special there. That movie is really good. It's a Korean movie, by the way, but it does have a DVD release with English subtitles. So if you can find that, that's a good movie. I don't know about the other ones. I haven't actually seen Old Boy or Sympathy for Ms. Vengeance, but the first one's so good. And there's some other movies. Akari Mirai is Bright Future is probably what it's called in English, but that's a really good movie also. Um, so I'm mostly talking about foreign movies at this point, but if you've ever if you've ever seen Taste of Tea, that's a really good movie. It's Cha no Aji is the name of that movie, but trying to think of some others that are really good. Of course, like I like a bunch of stuff that everybody else likes too. I mean, I like Goodfellas, stuff like that. Hotel Rwanda is a really good movie. I like Hellraiser. I like a lot of horror, and I like a lot of kind of movies that are horribly depressing. So I think that's like, and I like cyberpunk stuff. So of course, RoboCop, which I mentioned, and Blade Runner is another really great movie for me. So many good movies, but I think I probably, now I probably have more games than I have DVDs, but I have a ton of DVDs, and I have hundreds and hundreds in the U.S. just in boxes at this point. But I used to buy like 10 or 15 DVDs a month, and I used to import a ton from like Hong Kong and Japan and Korea. So I've got a ton of DVDs, just a truckload. So I'm actually a pretty big fan of movies, but yeah. So it's hard to think of them off the top of my head though, which is weird because I have like such a huge collection of stuff over there. But anyway, last question from Crack Lotus. Food that you used to love in the States that you miss the most. This is like, there's not much that you can't get in Japan, but quality Mexican food is like non-existent. You can't get it anywhere. You can't even get bad Mexican food and have it be reminiscent of Mexican food. You couldn't even get something like Taco Bell. There's no Taco Bell. So not that like I really care, but in a pinch, like Taco Bell would kind of fulfill a Mexican food desire. But in Japan, like I've had awful Mexican food. Like it's not even reminiscent of like your kind of Tex-Mex kind of food. You know what I mean? You go. I had this like, you go and everything is kind of like weak flavored or somewhat tasteless and has way too much rice and not enough, spices. So like everything is bad. Like it's so hard to find like a good Mexican restaurant in Japan, and I actually did find one for a while, but it went out of business. It's the kind of thing like Japanese people don't like Mexican food, and you can't get it in Japan. There are a bunch of snacks and things that I used to get, but actually my friends have been sending me them recently, so like I got a huge box recently of like all these American snacks filled with Hostess and Drake's and Little Debbie products. So I got like a gigantic supply of those now. But yeah, Mexican food, there's no options. It's terrible. I make my own stuff at home, but it's just not the same. Because I don't really know how to make Mexican food, and there's if anyone's got recipes, send them my way. All right, so the last person on this page. So actually, thanks Crack Lotus for questions, and definitely everybody sub him because I would definitely recommend his channel. So let's see. Last person on this page, and this video is almost an hour for one page. So long. This video is going to be really long. Okay, Segata Sankuro asks, he says, seeing that you're a big Sega guy, it's weird that you've never talked about Valkyria Chronicles. Did you try the game? What did you think? Let's see. Valkyria Chronicles is, Valkyria Chronicles is a weird series for me because I have played the first game and I liked it, but I haven't played any of the other ones after that. And it's not that I disliked the first one or anything. I actually really enjoyed it, but for some reason I never got the the urge to buy the other ones. It's weird. And there's other games like that for me. Like, I really liked Batman Arkham Asylum. Like, I really liked it. I played it a ton. And the same with Valkyria Chronicles. I played it a ton. And then, when the sequels came out, I never bought them. I never even, like, had the interest. It's weird. So, that's how it is with Valkyria Chronicles. If I played Valkyria Chronicles 2 and 3, I'm sure I would like them. But I just haven't bought them, and I don't have the will to buy them. It's weird. I don't know. Same with Batman. I assume I would really like Batman Arkham City because I really liked Arkham Asylum, but still haven't bought it. Maybe someday. Who knows? Let's see. Okay, so the last question for this part 1, is how about starting a new vlog type video where you talk about your life, relationship, views, and that sort of stuff? It's not a bad suggestion, but I'm awful with this kind of thing because, generally I would have to start a new channel entirely for that, because I don't really consider this channel a me-centered channel, if that makes any sense. Like, I understand that people visit channels of people that they like, so there is a bit of me in here, but when I make a video, I try to keep me out of it more than I think others try to. I don't want to put myself into the video so much as I want to put forward information about what I'm talking about. So, I like to have videos where, if I do an impressions video, I want people to watch the video and get like an impression about the game, not about so much about me, but about, I don't want my personality to sway people towards playing the game. I want the topic to sway them toward playing the game, if that makes any sense. It's a difficult thing to say because a lot of people make their videos are very, personality focused. And I think a lot of Let's Players are like that, where people watch their videos because they like that person's personality and they don't really care what they're playing. So, but in my case, I'm just trying to make videos where I think people will enjoy the content more than me as a person. Like, in general, like, I'm not an incredibly outgoing person, and I'm not an incredibly, like, I don't want to say I'm unfriendly, because I'm not unfriendly. I'm just distant, I think. I don't go out of my way to talk to people, and I don't, even on YouTube, I never really comment all that much on stuff. Recently I've been trying to comment more because I've just been trying to, be a bit more social. But, I don't generally comment on people's videos, even though I watch a ton of videos, because, I watch videos constantly throughout the day while I'm working. I don't watch them, I just listen, but you know what I mean. But the thing is that, to make a kind of video where I talk about my life or, views on things, like, it makes the channel more me focused. So it makes things like, people will like the channel more based on if they like me and not if they like what I'm talking about. And I wanted to, like, my main purpose for making the channel is that I want people to, with similar interests, to come and talk about these interests, not necessarily to talk about my views. If that, I don't know if I'm making sense, which is, maybe I'm repeating myself at this point, but I think, like, what I'm saying is a little strange in that, maybe if I did that kind of thing where, like, I put a lot of personality into things and did a lot more talk about how personal things, that, people would like my channel more or whatever. But I don't think I don't really want to I don't want to put that into this channel anyway. Like, I could make a whole nother channel about that kind of stuff, but when I'd have time to update stuff is like, you see how often I update this channel. It's like pretty intermittent. Sometimes I go like 2 weeks without putting up anything, and then some days I can record, 3 videos and put them all up. It's the kind of thing where, like, I just don't have time, and to start another channel with just my, random stuff about me is kind of, I feel it's like a bit narcissistic. Like, I don't really think people care enough about what I have to say about other topics. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to talk, do you really care what I'm doing? I mean, like, for example, in my other Q&A video, I was mentioning that, like, I'm on Facebook, but don't add me as a friend on Facebook because, like, I don't use it that often, and when I do use it, I'm not, like, usually talking about games, and I get up to a lot of stuff that's like that's not exactly well for public knowledge, for various reasons, but you know mainly, like, it's just the kind of thing where I don't know, I don't think enough people would be interested, and the few of you that are friends with me on Facebook kind of know that I don't post that much, and when I do, it's almost never anything gaming related. But yeah, I don't know, if you guys are really really interested in, like, my views on things, feel free to ask. I mean, you can message me with stuff. I don't mind answering. I answer all my messages and comments if I remember to. But beyond that, man, I couldn't see myself making those kinds of videos, only because I don't like to talk about myself, and I don't like to, you know, put those kind of things out there because I don't want to argue so much. You know what I mean? Like, my views on things, like, are not usually not usually in line with everybody else's for a lot of things. So, I'd rather not get into arguments and have people, like, getting angry at me for believing what I believe, because in all honesty, I don't care. Other people's views don't sway my views. I build my own views based on experience and my own, qualifications, I guess. So it doesn't really do anything for me to put out a video of my views. It might do something for others, but probably not. And I don't think it would be popular enough or interesting enough to really make a video about it. But that's the last question for this page, and really, I'm not even sure I answered that question, even though I rambled on aimlessly about it for like 5 minutes. But anyway, this video is like an hour, and it will be part 1, and I will upload the other parts whenever. Like I said, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 more pages of questions. Plus, if anybody has any more, I'll add them to the bottom of the list. So you can expect 3 or 4 parts for this. So yeah, catch you guys next time.